Bluffs, the most populous city in southwest Iowa. It has beautiful parks, the taco ride at the nature trail every Thursday evening on dry seasons, Fairview Cemetery guided walk tour, and adult board game nights. The perfect place I will be moving to when I turn 80. An Iowan, Robert Ben Rhodes, raised by his mother while his dad was stationed in West Germany, serving as a U.S. Army soldier. His father returned from duty when Robert was still a young boy. After being discharged from the Army, his father became a firefighter. In Robert's teen years, he played sports such as wrestling and football, and like some teenagers, he bumped heads with the law, once for tampering with a vehicle and another time for fighting at 17. Despite the run-ins with police, he managed to graduate from Thomas Jefferson High School in 1964. Right after he graduated, he joined the military like his dad did. The Marine Corps, to be exact. Although not the same branch, he still succeeded in following his father's steps on becoming a soldier. In that same year of his achievements, his father was arrested for inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl. Before the father faced trial, he ended his own life. With the loss of his disgraced father, Robert Rhodes started to misbehave once again. A few years later, a robbery that he committed would earn him a dishonorable discharge from the Marines. He enrolled in college, but he dropped out. He started to work odd jobs. He even tried to join the police force, only to be rejected because, well, he's a criminal. A truck driving career gained his interest, and he went for the job. Once hired, he began hauling across the states. Fast forward, 3 marriages later, and the son with his first wife, Rob, started to develop some intolerant and violent behaviors. His third wife, Deborah, told stories of him physically and sexually abusing her. She also said he engaged in very unusual sexual practices she found wild and disturbing. Painful bondage, torture devices, multiple partners at once, among other things I won't describe. Deborah said when she was admitted to the hospital due to severe illness from lupus, Robert was aroused and enjoyed seeing her suffering in that condition. Robert was heavily involved in BDSM. BDSM, for those of you who are pretending you don't know what that is, in layman's terms, it's a sexual roleplay that involves receiving and inflicting pain for sexual pleasure. He developed an insatiable desire to inflict pain and punishment. His nickname was Whips and Chains, a deviant sexual sadist. No level was enough to satisfy him. The marriage with Deborah lasted roughly 2 years.
Hey, you want to ride?
In November 1989, newlyweds, Patricia Walsh, 24 years old, and Douglas Ziskovsky, 26, had planned a trip from their hometown Seattle, Washington, to Georgia. They would hitchhike their way through the long journey. The religious couple were on a mission to spread the word of God once they'd reached their destination. Sadly, they wouldn't make it anywhere close to Georgia. When the newlyweds got picked up, Douglas, the husband, was shot to death and thrown out nearby a Texas highway. Patricia was kidnapped. She was forced to perform sadistic acts and was tortured repeatedly. The horror Patricia must have gone through is something out of a nightmare. Witnessing your newly wedded husband's life get violently taken away and carelessly discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Then having to endure excruciating pain and terror for roughly a week straight before being slaughtered. It's fair to say that on their journey to preach about God, they met the devil. February 1990.
Hey, you guys seem pretty young to be out on these roads. Are you okay?
Hi.
Well, come on in.
Ricky Lee Jones and his girlfriend, Regina K. Walters, were runaways from Pasadena, Texas. Ricky, an 18-year-old with a rough background growing up in child protective services, Regina, a 14-year-old girl that decided to abandon her previous life. They became romantically involved and escaped from the same city. They had plans to relocate to Mexico, where they would continue their relationship. Their romantic getaway was cut short the moment they stepped into that truck. Ricky Lee Jones was shot in the head and thrown out near a highway. Regina was kidnapped. What happened to her for the next 2 weeks was an act of evil not even the most hardened detectives can stomach. A 14-year-old girl, crippled with fear, getting repeatedly assaulted, tortured, and humiliated in every way imaginable. To the predator, the torment wasn't enough. The assailant would call her father via payphone to taunt him by describing his daughter's condition. Regina's hair had a decent length. It would sit below her shoulders, but the kidnapper cut it short and updated the father of her new hairstyle. When the father asked if his daughter was still alive, the phone would hang up. At the break of dawn of April 1, 1990, Mike Miller, a trooper of the Arizona Highway Patrol, came across a truck with its hazard lights on, sitting at Interstate 10, not far from Casa Grande, Arizona. Officer Miller pulled out his flashlight and started investigating, walking around the truck, checking to see if someone was in need of assistance, and while he was looking, he heard strange sounds coming from within the truck. He climbed up the side step and looked in the sleeper cab, and what he discovered shocked him to the core. A battered, naked woman chained to the wall, screaming for help. Officer Miller immediately drew his weapon. It was then the officer noticed a man quickly moving through the curtains that divided the cab and the front seats. Miller went to the driver's side and flashed his lights on the person's face and ordered him to exit the truck. The man complied. According to the officer, the driver had a very calm demeanor and was trying to persuade him, assuring him that it isn't what it looks like and that everything was fine. Miller didn't buy it. He immediately handcuffed the driver and sat him in the back of the patrol car. According to one source, the suspect almost escaped the police vehicle but was unsuccessful. Officer Miller raced back to the woman and noticed a lot more horrific things. She was badly bruised with cuts in her face. Both her hands and feet were shackled. Her neck was strapped by a horse bridle. Miller knew he came across an unusual and very wild situation and called for backup. What Miller thought could be a possible one-time isolated incident couldn't be further from the harsh reality. The suspect was taken to jail and was identified as the diabolical Robert Ben Rhodes, aka Whips and Chains. He was initially charged with sexual assault, aggravated assault, and unlawful imprisonment. Enforcers executed a search warrant for Robert's home where they discovered many photos of graphic material. Among the gallery, one displayed a very disturbing image of Regina K. Walters. This is the infamous photo of Regina. Police believe this was the last moment of her life before it was brutally taken. On May 26, 1990, Regina's boyfriend, Ricky Lee Jones's partial skeleton was discovered in Mississippi. On September 29, 1990, Regina was found nude and badly decomposed at an abandoned barn off of Interstate 70 in Illinois. An autopsy revealed the 14-year-old was strangled to death by a garrote around March of 1990. After further investigation, Detective Rick Barnhart pieced together compelling evidence which proved an interesting pattern through western states that was directly linked to Robert Ben Rhodes. On October 26, 1990, in Millard County, Utah, deer hunters discovered skeletal remains. For over a decade, the person to whom the skeletal remains belonged was labeled Jane Doe 1. That is, until 2003, the forensic scientists from the University of Arizona finally gave the skeletal remains an identity. She was Patricia Walsh, the wife of Douglas Ziskovsky, the newlyweds. Douglas's remains were discovered off of a highway in Sutton County, Texas, near Interstate 10. After his arrest in April 1990, Whips and Chains confessed to the murders of the newlyweds. More details of this depraved individual were revealed throughout the investigation. Robert turned his sleep cabin into a torture chamber, performing his demonic acts on women and disposing of their corpses in various states, as if their life meant absolutely nothing after his sick and twisted desires were fulfilled. Now, there are a few victims that have met the truck stop killer and lived to tell their unforgettable experience. A few weeks after the newlyweds' death, he kidnapped a victim by the name of Shayna Holtz, a young 18-year-old girl with red blonde hair, freckles, and blue eyes, who's been in the streets for years. From one source, it states that Rhodes unlocked the shackles off of Holtz and told her to sit there and be a good girl. And that's when she took the opportunity to escape and report to police. Robert Rhodes was detained, but the victim declined to press any charges. Despite the evidence collected, she didn't believe police would believe her, due to her many run-ins with previous assaults on the streets. She said, "I don't see any good in filing charges. It's just going to be my word against his." She was held captive for 2 weeks, being assaulted and tortured before her escape. "Hey, that's me," said Pamela to her then boyfriend back in 2015. He was like, "Yeah, right." Milliken, now 52, said she was browsing through Facebook and she came upon a post asking for help identifying a young indigenous woman found left in a semi-truck of the truck stop killer. "I knew right away that was me," Milliken said. "I was going to find my brother in Winnipeg." She started hitchhiking in the spring of 1985. "The sun was setting, I stuck my hand out and waited for someone to pick me up," she said. Then a flat-nosed, white semi-truck stopped on the highway and she went running after it. "I opened up the door and I looked at him. He said, 'Hey, jump up on in here.' I said, 'I have a really heavy bag and you're going to have to help me with it.' I put my bag on the seat and he said, 'Yeah, I'll help you with that.' And he put it in the back. Just as Milliken climbed up into the seat, the driver took a photo. I said, 'Why did you do that for?' He replied, 'Well, I'm going to take your picture. If you rip me off, I can tell the cops that you stole from me.' He introduced himself as Robert. He pointed to a sign on his dashboard that said cash, grass, or ass. No one rides for free. I didn't have any money, I didn't smoke pot, so I knew which one it would be," she said. She and the driver had consensual sex in the back of the truck. Then she was dropped off without harm. 30 years later, she came across a Facebook post. "I was pretty freaked out when I saw it, but I just want them to know I am okay," she said. Vanessa Velselka, an American novelist, recalls how she had an ongoing problem with her mother. Arguments, fights, and dealing with emotional violence. She decided to pack up and leave with barely any money, and that's when she hit the streets. While on the road, a driver pulled up in a truck right into the shoulder of the road, surrounded by woods. He had the cleanest cab I ever saw. "He must have seemed okay, or I wouldn't have gotten in a truck with him," she said. But once they hit the road, he stopped responding to my questions. He shifted, he grew taller in his seat, and his face muscles relaxed into something both arrogant and blank. Then he started talking about a dead girl in a dumpster and asked me if I've ever heard of the Laughing Death Society. "We laugh at death," he told me. He took out a hunting knife and told me to get in the back of the cab. I began talking. I said I wouldn't go to the cops if nothing happened to me, but it was his choice, until he looked at me and I went still. He wasn't nervous, angry, or excited. He was grave and methodical. There was going to be no more talking. I knew in my body that it was over. Then he said one word: "Run." Vanessa hopped out and ran as fast as she could. She wasn't sure if she was being chased like some sort of sick game, but she didn't look back. About 100 yards in, she stopped and hid. I crouched on netted twigs and breathed into my shirt to muffle the sound. I stayed there until I saw the truck pull into the interstate. It was getting dark. I was still in shock, so I walked back out to the same road and started hitching south. I never went to the police and didn't tell anyone for years. In 1994, Whips and Chains was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In 2005, he was extradited to Utah to be tried for the deaths of Patricia and Douglas, the newlyweds. The charges were dropped per family's request so that they wouldn't be required to testify more than once for both states. Robert Ben Rhodes was later extradited to Texas for the murder of Regina K. Walters and her boyfriend Ricky Lee Jones. In exchange for dropping the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the deaths of the young couple and received a second life sentence. He is currently rotting away at Menard Correctional Center in Chester, Illinois. It was presumed that he was a killer way before his first confirmed murder in 1990. Authorities believe he murdered an average of 3 women a month. The true number of victims of Robert Ben Rhodes may never ever be known. I want to say rest in peace to Mike Miller, the state trooper who ended the truck stop killer's killing spree. Now, when you hitchhike, you are putting your life at risk. The person that picks you up may be helpful and take you where you need to go, or at least much closer to your destination. But the driver may have ulterior motives. Many victims have been robbed, assaulted, kidnapped, sexually harassed, and even murdered. Robert did it all, and there are plenty of predators just like him. Same goes for the driver. You may want to be helpful and give somebody a lift, but you have absolutely no idea who you are letting in your vehicle. It may very well be someone who's down on their luck or someone who has very bad intentions. So, without stopping your vehicle, call a non-emergency line if someone may need some assistance. Please be safe.